Okay, this is the test review for 9B.1 on simplifying radicals. So we're going to be looking at square roots, cube roots, and also square roots with variables. We don't get cube roots with variables, but we can have negative numbers for cube root questions. So these are the questions that you'll see. And I put myself a little sketch pad here so I can start working through these. So basically, this is the reverse question. They've told us the answer, and we're trying to figure out what the question is. So when that happens, what we really need to do is we just need to do the square of this term here. So this actually is why this links in with the last unit so nicely. This is your power to a power rule. So you just square each term. So you do 12 squared, and you do d to the power of 4 squared. So anything we're not sure of, we can obviously just check on Desmos. So I did here, 12 squared is 144. So I already typed that one in. So I can kind of already see it's between the first two. So of course I got to put the square root back around this because this is the original question. And then power to a power, you just multiply these together. So 4 times 2 is 8. And another way of thinking of this is when we do square roots with exponents, we have to half this number to get to this number. So in reverse, what you're thinking about is what number, when you double it, would take you to whichever number you're trying to get. So obviously, clearly, d to the power of 8. And then obviously you can select this answer. This is just a picture, so I won't be able to go ahead and select those answers. And I actually doubled 4 here as well, just so I could actually check. Now, there is one other way you can do this question as well. The original question said, let me just go back, said D. I changed all these into X. So this was the original question, and these were my answer choices. Now, if I'm going to look at this from a picture, what I really want to focus on is just to the right of the y-axis. So I'm going to look at this. So this was the correct answer. And notice how the graph, when you type it in, you can see that it's exactly the same. And when I type in the second answer, you can clearly see these are different curves. So that tells me this is the wrong answer. Same for the third choice, and same for that fourth choice as well. Now, we said it was this first one, but actually for this one it does. Sometimes it doesn't always match up perfectly. So you're better just looking to the right of the y-axis, and that will always guide you as to which is the correct answer. Okay, question 2, same sort of question. They've given us the answer because it says it's the simplest form of, and then we've got to figure out which it's the simplest form of. So for the question, the things outside the square root, they're the things that we've got to bring back inside and square like we did on the previous question. So what I need to do then is 3 times 5 squared. Oops, not a very good squared here. And whoops, I thought I'd actually type this one in. I guess I hadn't typed this one in. Obviously, you can type this in straight into Desmos, and it will tell you that it's 75, and then you do have the correct answer. Now, I noticed from this first view, they do all seem to be A. I'm not sure if that's just kind of previewing this test, so you can kind of see where the answers are always the first one. Don't assume that's definitely going to be true. That just happens to be for this one. Now, one other way I can try this question as well is you can type in the question, and then you have to type in all of the answer choices just to be safe, and then look at the decimal equivalent. So 8.6, 8.6. Anything that's not 8.6, then I know that this is a wrong answer. And then you can also find the answer out that way as well. So that's a very good, useful technique for when you're taking a test. Identify all the expressions in simplest form. This can be one of the more difficult questions. First of all, we don't need to worry about anything that's anything that's outside the parentheses. We're not really outside the radicals. We're only interested in things that are inside the radical. So we're interested in 4x. We're interested in 15x, xy. And remember, for these questions, we have to get every single one of these correct. If we miss one, then we automatically get the question wrong. If we select one that's not true, same thing, we automatically get this question wrong. Now, when we saw this on previous questions, anything that has an exponent inside the radical is normally the first one that I would actually choose to get rid of. So can't do that for this one. There are some on the outside, but that's not really important for this question. So we're simplifying radicals, so we're looking inside the square root part. Now, if you see any that don't have any numbers at all, then you know straight away that those ones are good and they're in simplest form. And I typed in some of these other ones so we can see them ahead of time. So square root of 4 is 2. So that does actually simplify. So that would be a wrong answer then. Square root of 15 is a decimal. So I went ahead and typed in my table, x1, 15 divided by x1 squared, starting at 3, because it says 3.87, and then just counting down just to check. So for this one, if you get 1, that means that this doesn't simplify, because this is just 1 square root of 15. So in other words, 15 is already in simplest form. You cannot simplify 15 any further. 7 and 27 are my next two. So square root of 7 gives me a decimal again. So I created my little table, did 7 divided by x1 squared. Luckily for these, they're fairly short tables, so they don't take too long for us to do. Typed in 2, didn't work. Typed in 1, I got my two whole numbers. But notice it's still the square root of 7. So square root of 7 does not simplify. Square root of 27, I got a decimal, 5.19. So 27.1. I did x2 squared here because on my previous table I did x1. So in general, I would normally just create another table. But just for speed, so I didn't have to move across too many slides. 543, and you can see that 27 does simplify to 3 square root of 3. So for that question then, that one does simplify, which means that's the wrong answer. 7 does not simplify, which means it's the correct answer. So you would select for this one answer choices B, C, and D. Always difficult because you're never quite sure. With 5 here, there could be 0 answers, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 possible answers. So no shortcut except for just checking each answer. Okay, question 4, find the simplest form of the cube root of 6,000. So this one really is just going to be straight away onto my table. Type in the question first. Didn't get a whole number, so I'm going to do 6,000. This time, though, not divided by x1 squared. As this is a cube root, I'm going to divide by x1 cubed. Starting from 18 and just going downwards until I get my two whole numbers. So I got 10 and 6 here. So I can pick this choice straight away here. It's going to be answer choice A for this question. Just a reminder, if you need help on creating this table, go back to the original videos for 9B.1, and they'll show you there exactly how you create this table if you're not sure. But certainly you're going to click on plus, and then you click table, and you just need to change this part here. The other way you can do that question, very similar to what I showed you before, is you can type in the question, you can type in each answer choice, but make sure you do type in all the answer choices because this time there's actually 2 that have the correct answer. So we need to know which of these is the correct answer. So as we're looking at the square roots, square 1,600, square root of 6, cube root of 6,000, cube root of 6, cube root of 48. We go with the one that has the smaller root. So clearly 6 is the smallest of those numbers. Therefore, that's the wrong answer, and this is the correct answer. So if you are using the decimal method, make sure you type in all the answers. And then if you have more than one that's correct, pick the one that has the smallest radical, because that will be the one that has been simplified the most. Now we're starting to get a couple of things in here. We're starting to get letters, and we're also starting to get numbers. So for these ones, really, we're just trying to break this into smaller questions. So focus on the number, and then focus on each of these letters in turn. So doing the numbers, square root of 289 is 17, as you can see. So I got rid of this answer here, but that's just about it. For the other ones, I want to divide these by 2. So when we have a square root and we have an exponent, we divide the exponent by 2. So 7 divided by 2 is 3.5, and 9 divided by 2 is 4.5. So let me go back to this. So this is 17. When I do the square root of this, I ended up with 3.5. And for the y, I ended up with 4.5. And then how we translate that into our answer is we just take the first parts of these. So you can see that this is x cubed. And you can see that we have a y to the power of 4 here as well. And anything that has the 0.5 there, that tells you that there's a bit left over, and that's the part that goes back inside the square root. So the 0.5 is with the x, so I put an x. I have a 0.5 with the y, so I put the y there as well. So looking at the answer choice then, it looks like for this one that it's answer choice B. Can't really do this one graphically because unfortunately there's 2 letters. So that makes that one always a little bit more difficult to do. Same idea with this one. I'm just going to split this up into smaller parts. So square root of 108, square root of a to the 49, and square root of b to the 16. So I would start with the number part for this one. So square root of 108, I would want to type in to Desmos. I get my decimal, so I'm going to do my table here. And you can see that eventually we find out that it's 6 square root of 3. I also did 49 divided by 2, which is 24.5. So we're going to need that one in a second. So I got 6 square root of 3, a to the power of 24.5, because we divided by 2. Notice that they picked a number that you can do the square root for. So square root of 49 is 7, but that's not what we're trying to do for this question. When you do the square root of something with an exponent, you just half the exponent. So a half of 16 is 8. And then we just go along the line and pick out things that don't have the, separate the sort of the solves part, with the square root. So there's my square root, there's my number. A to the 24, I'm going to put that there. And as it says 0.5, I know I also need that letter there. And then b to the 8, no decimal for this one. So this is just b to the 8. And it looks like it would be answer choice A for this question. Question 7, cube root of negative 1,728. So this is just a typing question. The important part about it is remembering how you do the cube roots. So for doing square roots, are just down here, they're easy to do. For cube roots, functions, miscellaneous, and then there's your cube root button if you wanted to check. And often for cube root ones, they will just be the number, just be a whole number, as you can see, so I don't need a table. So yep, this one was negative 12, nice easy one, we are done. You could type in each answer choice, but you don't really need to do that for this one because we already know what the answer choice is, so we don't need to compare decimals. Cube root of 1,000, same one, another easy one. Type it straight in, and you get the whole number of 10, so we're good for that one. Square root of 147, so type in the question. Check your table, 147 over x1 squared. Keep going down until you get 2 whole numbers. So I got 7 and 3 for this one. And there you go. You can see that it's answer choice A easily enough. And you could do the one where you check all the decimals as well, like I did here. And there's only one of them that has the same decimal as the question, meaning that I can ignore all the other answers for this one. Last one, same lot of the ones we've done previously. We're just going to split it up into smaller questions. 192, x to the 64, and y to the power of 81. Once again, they've been very sneaky and picked ones that you can do the square root of 64 and 81, but we're actually going to half those numbers. So 192, type in the question, create your table, 192 divided by x1 squared, and then starting at 13, just go down until you get 2 whole numbers, which is 8 and 3. And hopefully that's enough to eliminate some answers straight away. It looks like it's between answers 1 and 2. Remember, for this one, we're not doing the square root of 64, we're dividing it by 2. So 64 divided by 2 is 32. And then now I do know the answer because it's the only one that has 8x to the 32. Notice the square root of 64 is 8. They're really hoping you'll pick that answer there. 81 divided by 2 is 40.5. So you could put the 40 here. And remember, the 0.5 tells you to put the letter also inside the square root, and it would confirm that it's that question. I also did 64 divided by 2 on here. So just remember, anything with division, multiplication, those basic calculations, just use your Desmos calculator to check those answers. That's the test review for 9B.1.